Today's Guitarologist episode is brought to you by ShlubHub, because why not? Hey, word up G's, Brad the Guitarologist here. It's a beautiful day outside, so we're gonna characteristically stay inside. This is a Magnatone amplifier, good shape. It's from the late 40s or early 50s. I think it has to be early 50s because, well, no, I guess this would be more toward the mid to late 50s because Magnatone did not become Magnatone until the mid to late 50s. Earlier on, they were called just Magna. So this is probably, I don't know when they changed. I think it was 55, 56, perhaps somewhere along in there. But we're going to take a look at this one. It's actually labeled Magna on the back, but it's funny, it's labeled Magnatone on the front. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit confused about the history. Maybe they did label some of these Magnatone, even though they were still technically Magna Electronics, the company name. Anyway, this is a student model amplifier, very simple, just one control with a switch on it, which is pointing the wrong direction. 2 instrument inputs. It says 20.7 watts, but that's the consumption, not the output, obviously, because this is just a single-ended 6v6, just like the kind you see all through the late 40s, all through the 50s. This one has an octal preamp tube, and it should be is it an SJ? Yeah, 6SJ7. So we're gonna look this thing over, check it out. We will do some complete overhaul work on it, so let's get started. One thing I do very quickly want to draw attention to is the state of this thing, which is really nice. It's you know, it's worn, but it's not abused. It's very very much what you like to see on amps of this age. It has the original handle even, which is very rare because most of the time these cowhide leather handles of this style, they get so worn right here around this area where they've been kind of pushed in and pushed up, and you can see where it's getting worn right there. But they get so worn and so kind of dry rotted over time that they just kind of disintegrate. This one is still intact, actually. You can get handles like this for replacement, but this is the style with the kind of spade on the end. And these are kind of hard to find. I'm not sure if you could still find this spade type or not, but what I would probably do is replace it with the other type if I had to replace it. But it's good to see that it's still there and still intact. You don't see that very much. This also has a kind of a strange covering. This is a cloth covering, it's cloth based, but it has a really kind of, I don't know, it kind of has a neat skin pattern or something, you know, like fingerprint pattern or something on it. Cool diamond grill with the alternating diamonds. But yeah, like I said, you know, Magnatone logo here, and it's not rubbed off miraculously because that's just, I think, screen printed on the front there. So it's very miraculous that's not rubbed off. Corners are all real crisp and real nice. Nothing's pulling up really. Just in real good shape overall. So let's pop this thing open. Let's pull the chassis out of it, and we'll see what we're looking at. I do already see that we're gonna have to replace that power cord because it is just in shambles. So one thing I've noticed right off the bat here is that these screws are in here very well. I don't think they've ever been turned in the life of this amplifier. Okay, this chassis not only has the 2 front screws, but it looks like it has another one right here and another one here. We do have a note. It says, please find the above described amp from our Facebook messages. When I purchased the amp, it was described as working. However, the power cord is disintegrated, obviously. I mean, this thing is... Can you inspect to see what repairs it needs? At a minimum, I want it to be safe. All right, well, cool. Let's get this thing up and going. This shouldn't be a problem. Now, I say that, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. Alright, here we are with the back door off, and we're about ready to take the speaker leads off so we can get the chassis out, but I wanted to show the transformer and things first. We have a triad transformer, as we always see pretty much on Magnatone amps of this era. 6308 is the model number there. We have a GE. This will be the rectifier, and let's see what the date is on that. That's the 5Y3. 1959, probably. would be my guess, but I don't know if this is original to the amp. And this was made probably in Owensboro, Kentucky, 188-5. This is a Delco, which is definitely a replacement 6V6. I don't know, well, no, maybe not, because I think, because that 939 right there, that might be 1959 as well, so possibly that is an original tube, because it does match the date code of the GE. Because Delco was a radio brand, so anything labeled Delco is usually from a radio, but that may not always be the case. Yeah, 1959 labeled here as well. So this is, I'm sure, a 1959 amplifier. This will be the first time these guts have been seen, I'm positive, since this amplifier was made. So let's, the big reveal. Alright, yeah, this is 100% original. I can tell that just by looking at it. This thing is going to benefit from a complete recap without a doubt. There is no way I'm leaving a single one of these capacitors in here, and that includes the cap can as well. We're going to have to do something different with the with all the stuff on the cap can. It looks like we have a Sangamo over here, which is common to see around this era, late 50s. You see those molded Sangamos quite a lot in vintage stuff. Looks like maybe that's a Mallory right there. Don't know. No, it's a Mighty Midget. We have paper and wax capacitors throughout, including the death cap. Yeah, even the death cap is paper and wax. So good lord, if the cord didn't get you, I mean, look at this. Look at this cord. If the cord didn't get you, then the paper and wax death capacitor probably would have. But no, man, seriously, this thing is in a state. We're going to do this thing more favors than it has seen since the day it left the factory. So let's go ahead and pull some of these capacitors out of here and get them replaced. One more thing I will go ahead and note, you can see just by the inputs here how you have a resistor going into a capacitor, then going into the grid of the first tube. That usually indicates that what we have here is a tube that is grid leak biased and not cathode biased. So, you know, I'm going to make every effort just to leave this thing, the wiring, because it's so pristine. I have not been given any kind of mandate to go modding around on it or anything, so we're just gonna make this thing stock. All right, well, I mean, we could start virtually anywhere, but I think probably best place to start would be with the power cord, because we know it has to go. So we'll clip that there, we'll clip it off over here. And what I usually like to do with power cords is leave enough of the cord remaining. Because we're gonna have to take this off, so it's good to have enough cord to grab and wiggle on while you're desoldering it. So, and it's just easier that way, I've found. It's also better, I've found, to try to grab these. They make a tool for getting these out of here. I haven't ever purchased it. I've never really felt a need, but usually I find that if you squeeze on the inside of these retainers with some needle nose or something, you can usually get these out from the inside, which is much easier and safer. You're not scratching the outside of the chassis if you go remove it from the inside out like that. Now this retainer also, this is going to be something we probably will not be able to reuse, because the new cord that I put on here is likely to be bigger than this 2 conductor. So we're going to go probably with a grommet. Now this is one place that I disagree with the international regulations, because the international regulations would have me drill a hole in the front of this chassis right here and attach the ground cable to a lug right here near the input, where the power cord comes into the unit. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find a place where there's an existing I'm not going to drill any holes in this thing. I'm not going to start drilling holes in vintage amplifiers because some international body says I should. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use the lug for the transformer right here. Now, there will probably be a whole raft. You can go down the comments and see probably a whole raft of people bitching that I have done this, or I'm suggesting others do this. I'm not suggesting anybody do this. I'm just saying I'm doing this. I'm going to put the ground right here on this lug because, as far as I'm concerned, this hasn't gone anywhere in 70 years or 60 years or whatever it is. I don't expect it to go anywhere, so I don't understand what all the fuss is about as far as the ground cable things. But you'll find all kinds of people with all kinds of ideas. Some of them are in Brussels, Belgium, and most of them are full of shit. So, honestly. All right, next thing's next. We're going to get rid of that capacitor right there. That's the death capacitor. Industrial Condenser Corporation. They mark the outside foil on it. Yeah, Chicago, Illinois. See, it's interesting because they'll you might ask, why didn't this amp was built in California, so why wouldn't they source parts a little closer to where it was built instead of paying the shipping to have these shipped all the way out to California? Alright, next thing's next. Let's desolder these leads for the power cord. What I usually do on stuff like this is go around in a circle. If you go around in kind of a circular motion, usually if it's braided wire like this, all the braids will kind of work themselves out of the hole, and you don't risk marring up or breaking off your terminal. I'll show you over here too. Let's see if I can. A lot of the time when I try to show this kind of crap, it all just goes disastrously wrong and doesn't behave. Let's see if you go. Let's see if you kind of go in a circular motion like that. See the braids just kind of walk themselves off of there, and took all the solder with them. Now, like I said, at this point, it would be the easiest thing to do would just be to plug the new power cord into those two positions and be done with it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make it a little bit safer than that. I've shown this trick before, but when stripping wires, it's always easiest to get a pair of pliers like this, or needle nose or whatever, and then use your strippers in this way. I mean, there's different kinds of strippers, and some of them you might not have to do this, but on this, I like to grab it here, and then you just kind of rock the strippers to the side, and it just strips it off. That way, you're not exerting force anywhere except for right there. You got to quietize yourself.
Don't shush me.
You got to be quietized.
I'm not to be shushed.
Silence. Mortal. There's a lot of kind of cobwebs and things like that, dust bunnies and stuff. I just like to brush out amps like this. I want to remove these capacitors on this can, and we need to get some stuff out of the way in order to do that. So let's go ahead and desolder a couple things here. These terminals, yeah, they are labeled. You can barely see up under there. If you're wondering how to determine which of these is which, because this will have 3 different capacitors in it, you see right there, there's a triangle cut right in there. This one has a square cut, and on the other side of this one there is nothing cut. So what you do is flip the chassis up, look at the outside case here, and it'll tell you which capacitor is which. So there's a 20, 20, and 20. The first two are 450, and the last one is 25. So yeah, you don't want to mix those up. Okay, what I usually like to do over here on these can capacitors, when taking these out, I like to just go ahead and clip the whole thing off and leave everything together. It just makes everything a little bit easier. Now this one doesn't matter because it's a lead that's going back over here, so we'll just come off of that point right there to ground for that discrete component. This one we'll have to find a terminal or something probably to install over here somewhere, and on this one we will also go to discrete components. So we'll follow that black wire right there over here to the 6V6. Right down there where that black wire is going in, we'll hook it right off of that instead. All right, I've gone ahead and rewired this thing. It's all ready to go, and I wasn't going to bore you with showing all of it, but I'll show the aftermath here. And once again, replaced all the capacitors because I know for a fact, just looking at them, the state they were in and the age of this amplifier, there's no sense whatsoever in trying to salvage any of them really at this point. And everything is, in my estimation now, 100% safe, 100% ready to go. I do need to go ahead and clean these jacks and clean the tube sockets, but after that, we're pretty much ready to go. I'm also going to vacuum out this cabinet for him. I'll probably go ahead and clean the chassis for him too, and it's not something I've really been paid to do, but you know, I want it to look nice for the customer, so let's go ahead and clean it up. And we'll go ahead and pull these tubes and give them a good wipe down, also give the chassis a good wipe down. And we'll do a nice little before and after shot here. This ought to be interesting. Alright, so that's much better. You can actually see the tube labels on the chassis there now. We do have some areas of corrosion that just aren't gonna, aren't gonna be fixed really by wiping it down. Little area right there. Also, the model number on this thing is M-199-3-J. Alright, now we're just wiping down tubes, getting all the dust off of them, and we're gonna clean these sockets as well. Alright, so there are all the tube sockets clean. Now we're going to clean these input jacks, and the way I do that is with this is kind of like a pipe cleaner. You can get kits that have different sized nylon brushes like this that are they're usually marketed as pipe cleaners online. I'll put a link down in the description or in a comment or something for you. But you can get like an assortment of these. And it's good to have this kind of stuff around, and this is what I usually use to clean input jacks. Okay, everything's clean now, and while we're at it, let's check the fuse. The reason to check the fuse is just to make sure it's not too large. This should be like a 2 amp fuse max, has the amp rating stamped on the end rather than on the side. And just make it less nasty. Okay, so that's a lot better. Another note on this cabinet, the whole thing is made of plywood. So it's really well made little amp. And I believe it's also finger jointed from what I can tell. You can just barely see the joints up there, and it looks finger jointed to me. Okay, this amp was kind of wired in an interesting and weird sort of way. There was a 4.7 microfarad capacitor. I think it's actually on the first reservoir node, and then you have a dropping resistor before another dropping resistor, and then you have a final capacitor over here for the preamp. I only have a 450 volt capacitor to replace the 475 right here, 4 microfarad, that was in that position originally. So I put a 4.7 at 450 volts. We're going to carefully measure the voltage at this point and see if it comes close to that, or if it's indeed going to need something larger like a 500 volt. What we could do also is just skip this, modify this power rail and get rid of this, and that would kind of streamline it a little bit, but we'll see. I want to measure this first and see what it comes to, but let's go ahead and fire it up slowly on the variac. There is 79 volts on the input, and we're at 225 volts at that stage. Let's check the next stage down. 209 right there, volts. And over here we have, whoop, wrong side. Over here we have 150 volts. Okay, and we do have something, we do have signal, so that's a good sign. There we are. 120 volts on the input, 0.35 or 350 milliamps. We're drawing about 40 watts of power, so so that 20 watts or whatever it was on the front was way off as far as the consumption goes. 353 volts on that first node, so nowhere near the rating for that capacitor, so we're okay there. I haven't heard a single crackle, ripple. I haven't heard anything. The next step is going to be to plug a guitar into it, and I'm going to go ahead and do that while we have it up here still open. Some harshness in the speaker. Lots of rattling and buzzing in that speaker, unfortunately, and I think it's a voice coil issue. You hear that rattle? Okay. Well, there's kind of a gasket. There's kind of a gasket around there that looks like it was put in after the fact. So maybe somebody has been in this thing before. I think they definitely have to have been in here before, because that gasket would not have been there. And I don't understand what they're trying to achieve with that. But that needs to go. That's just garbage. Yeah, that stuff is garbage. That probably is the problem. It was, oh man. And the problem is too, it looks like they glued it to the, jeez. I think they glued it to the front grill cloth. They have some nuts in there on the front as standoffs, but they weren't even really hitting anything. They weren't touching anything. Okay, well, you know, again, I don't know. You see so many things. It's just, this looks like I mean, it's definitely it looks like a homemade gasket of some kind. So I just don't know. I don't know. I've given up trying to imagine what some people are thinking with the things that they do. I don't know if this was a case of, see, they've got these nuts just kind of, they don't even fit. These nuts don't even fit. They're just in here. And then you've got over here, you've got a rubber one, grommet. And the problem with doing something like that is if one side is further out than then another side, and then you tighten down on the screws, you're going to warp the basket, which is going to cause it to sound like crap. It's going to sound like voice coil rub, even at times when it's not rubbing. We have, look at this. We have a cone repair with with Scotch tape. A Scotch tape cone repair. So where do you reckon some of that rattling noise was coming from? I'll give you 3 guesses. Could it be the Scotch tape cone repair? Possibly. Okay, I've made videos like about this before, but I'll show you in this to give us an opportunity to look at it again. Alright, here's the area over here we're going to repair. Okay, so the first thing I like to do is just get a little hot glue on the whole area, and you want to go back and forth across the breech. For anything guitar, for guitar speakers, this is the way to go by far. This is the best way that I've found. A lot of people will probably chime in the comments and say, use this glue or that glue, or a lot of people talk about building it up with paper towels and stuff. You know, soaked in wood glue or whatever it is. But, you know, there's different methods. This is the method that I like. I'm not going to say that those methods wouldn't fix it, but I'm saying I think, at least in my head, this is a superior fix, because this glue can always be repaired again. This area can always be repaired in the exact same way. It's kind of like a nitrocellulose finish on lacquer on guitars. You know, if the lacquer, it gets damaged in one area, all you gotta do is come back with another little bit of nitrocellulose lacquer, and you can blend it into the old, and the old will actually blend with it. And it's the same with hot glue. So there's our repair, and you can see the breech is all sealed, and basically there's another skin layer on top of that. Okay, we've got it back in the cabinet now, and let's see. Much better, night and day. Still got some noises and things that could be the speaker still. Hell of a lot better, but it's still not perfect. Okay, so yeah, without a doubt, this output tube is weak. It's not bad, but it is weak. So it should be replaced really to get the most out of this thing. That speaker right there should definitely be replaced as well to get the most out of this thing, or at least reconed. I mean, obviously there's a couple different options there. So what I might do now at this point is contact the customer, see if he wants me to go ahead and replace this output tube and replace the speaker for him, and we'll go from there. Okay, let's give this thing a test with my Paul Reed Smith. So yeah, that is a 1959 Magnatone Student Model M-199-3-J. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit the subscribe button down below and also hit the bell to get all notifications. And for now, y'all take care.